The trick is not to play detective. The trick is to refuse to forget. I offered to drop her at yoga as a test run. She traced a longer route without noticing, avoiding the street with the motel sign that loses its end when the heat gets mean and leaves vacancy flickering at drivers with poor judgment. At the corner, the studio poster in the window said "Breathe" in letters you can read from a moving car. She touched my arm, soft, then glanced at her phone like she'd been paged by a better room. "Don't wait up," she said. She walked 4 steps, stopped, checked her reflection in the glass, adjusted a strand of hair, and went inside like she was meeting a script that needed her on time. Hearts started arriving on my phone while she was supposedly breathing. Not words. Just emoji. The universal unit of effort when language won't testify. I sent back a thumbs up and felt it land like a receipt. A second toothbrush appeared in the guest bath without a house vote. Peppermint gum she claims to hate showed up in a new pack by the Keys. It's the same brand sitting by every register between our exit and that frontage road where the cheap motel never sells out. A new jacket came into rotation, the good one that usually saves itself for anniversaries and weddings, suddenly perfect for quick errands. The dog sniffed the cuff and sneezed like he recognized a foreign policy. Thursday night, a black sedan with an office parking sticker idled at our curb. No honk. 2 quick chirps, a grown-up knock. She rose from the couch, grabbed the tote, and said, "I'm running out for gum." I shook the fresh pack in the bowl and said, "We have some." She blinked, smiled like she'd won a small prize, kissed my cheek with HR enthusiasm, and floated out the door. The sedan slipped away with the quiet confidence of someone who never gets tickets. I watched the taillights until they turned into coincidence. At 2:13 a.m., the doorbell camera sang our new single note. 2 shapes on the glass. A hand hovered near the handle, then retreated. A hush, proud of how quiet it was. The clip saved. I watched it exactly once. The first airing was enough. The house sounded different after that. The dishwasher hum turned into a courtroom. The dryer thump became a witness refusing to answer. The refrigerator clicked like a pen. I wiped the counters clean of crumbs that weren't evidence and stacked mail into 3 neat piles: keep, call, cut loose. There are only so many ways for the person you sleep beside to surprise you. After that, there's inventory. She texted that she would be late mentoring a new hire, and the sentence bent in the middle like a hanger under a winter coat. Mentoring does not smell like a stranger's cologne hiding under your jacket. Mentoring does not ask you to turn your phone face down while you kiss your husband like a neighbor. Mentoring does not tuck a fresh receipt under a tote flap with a timestamp that argues with your timeline. Friday, our neighbor Jason asked if we were coming to the block party. She looked at me the way you look at a waiter when you hope he orders for you. "We'll see," I said, which is the adult translation of no. She told a story about work that did not require me. People laughed. I can be generous with my porch. I am stingy with my patience. Later, when she fell asleep with her phone on her stomach, the lock screen reflected the ceiling fan like a coin spinning on its edge. The dog lifted his head and watched it wobble. I stared at the blank glass and saw myself sitting across from a version of my life that did not recognize me. I could say I wanted to wake her and demand names and places and reasons. I could say I wanted to slam cabinets and call friends and perform my pain like a scene. That is not my choreography. Where I'm from, you fix the hinge before you shut the door. You line up the paperwork before you move the boxes. You count backward from 10 and still have fingers left to hold the wheel. I set an early alarm. I placed her iced caramel in the app for morning pickup. I laid my wallet, keys, notebook, and pen in a straight line on the counter like tools for a clean job. Then I turned out the lights, listened to the porch settle back into wooden nails, and let the quiet close over me like a plan. Somewhere inside the router, the doorbell clip curled up next to its timestamp and went to sleep. Somewhere inside her phone, a name I don't know rested under a heart I didn't need to see again. Somewhere inside me, the part that begs went dark. I watched the fan keep time and stopped rehearsing what I would say. I started rehearsing what I would do. Morning came clean and simple. Coffee. Keys. Wallet. Notebook. I added one more thing. A small tracker the size of a coin. It felt weightless in my palm. It felt heavier than the lies it would find. She was upstairs with the blow dryer. I took her keyring off the hook the same way I take out the trash. No tension. No noise. The silicone fob opened with a quiet flex. The tracker slid in and clicked like a seatbelt. Keys back on the hook. Same angle. Same shine. Same little jingle when they settle. The dog watched. I scratched his ear. "Good morning," I said to him and to the room that would remember this day. She came down smiling in a way that missed me by an inch. Iced caramel in one hand. Tote in the other. Phone face down. The screen woke itself, flashed a name, and went dark like it regretted speaking. "Lisa's early," she said. Two short chirps answered from the curb. Not a minivan. A black sedan with an office parking sticker and a chrome plate frame from a dealership 2 exits beyond the cheap motel. The driver wore sunglasses in the shade. He lifted a hand like he knew me. I gave him nothing. She kissed my cheek like a receipt and jogged to the car. The door closed. The sedan rolled away as if it had the map of our street printed under its tires. On my phone, a small grey dot woke up and moved. Out of our subdivision. Onto the bypass. Not toward the studio with the posters about breath and light. Past it. Past the grocery store we actually like. Past our exit home. Into the office park where her company rents its clean floors and its slogans. The dot settled in the back lot. 11 minutes. Then it drifted east along the frontage road. It tucked itself behind a billboard for a roofing company that promises no surprises. The dot stopped at a motel that always has a vacancy even on graduation weekend. 15 minutes. 25. 38. I took a screenshot every 5 minutes without looking down. The kitchen clock kept steady time. The refrigerator hummed like a witness who knows it will be called. At 10:11 she texted, "Running late. Don't wait up." One period at the end. A period makes a rule. I replied with a single letter. K, not anger. Record. The dot went back to the office. It hopped to a smoothie place that sells sugar in green cups. At 5:14, it pointed toward home like nothing unusual had happened to anybody. When she walked in, peppermint followed her. Not ours. The kind of peppermint that makes cold water feel like a dare. The same brand of gum sat in the bowl by the keys. New pack. I hadn't bought it. She said, "Traffic." I said, "I bet." The dog sniffed the air, sneezed once, and sat between us like a quiet opinion. That night, at 2:13, the doorbell camera chimed its one small note. 2 figures on the glass. Close. Slow. A hand hovered near the handle and then withdrew. The MIC picked up a careful hush. The system saved the clip by itself. I watched it once. I let it sit where it belonged. I lay back down and counted the fan blades until I believed in even numbers again. Wednesday turned into proof. Office. Frontage road. Motel lot. Office. Home. A clean loop. I added an automation on my phone. If the dot stayed in one place longer than 20 minutes between 8 and 11 at night, the phone would save a timestamped screenshot. I named the files the way boring people name files. Tuesday _21_14_ motel lot. Wed _20_52_ backlot. Thu _09_28_ frontage. Boring names live longer than dramatic ones. Boring names win in rooms that have carpets and conference tables. Over dinner she tried a new sentence. We are pushing a rollout. I'm mentoring a new hire. The word sat on the table like a garnish. I nodded the way you nod when a waiter lists the specials. She added extra words. Onboarding. Cross-functional. Stakeholders. Words that sound like work and mean don't ask. Thursday evening the black sedan parked 2 houses down and idled. No honk. No doorbell. My phone lit up with that small edge of light a locked screen gives you. She stood, grabbed the tote, and said, I'm running out for gum. I lifted the pack in the bowl. Shook it once. Set it down. Grab 2, I said. They are on sale. She smiled with her mouth and not her eyes, left without her keys, and jogged to the sedan. The driver stared straight ahead like he was on stage and the audience was behind him. The dot on my phone did its job. The screenshot saved itself in the right folder without a sound. Friday I drove the street behind her office at lunch with the windows down and the radio off. The back lot glared in the sun. A man with his sleeves rolled once, not twice, walked toward a black sedan with that same chrome plate frame. He moved like someone who collects small victories and spends them on charm. He saw me, weighed me, and gave that small nod men use when they think they are ranking each other. I didn't nod back. He smiled anyway. He slid into the car, checked his mirror, and drove away as if mirrors were made to look at other people. That night she floated through the living room like a hostess rehearsing. Touched a candle. Straightened a frame. Checked her reflection in the dark TV. Maybe we should do a birthday thing, she said. Small. Backyard. I said, sure. The word landed softly and stayed. She waited for me to ask who to invite. I didn't. I put plates in the dishwasher and wiped the counter twice. She watched the wipe more than the counter. At 2:13 the camera did what it does. 1 note. 2 shapes. The hush that had learned our door. Another clip. Another line in the notebook. A small star in the margin when patterns became routine. By the end of the week, the page looked like a map of constellations. Not art. Navigation. Saturday afternoon I opened the junk drawer and pulled out the bundle of manuals and warranties everyone keeps for machines they pretend they will fix. Buried in the stack was an old email from her company with a link to a code of conduct PDF. I wrote the subject line in my notebook. I did not open it yet. I like my tools in reach. I do not put everything on the bench at once. Neighbors drifted through the yard that evening. String lights glowed. The grill sang. She moved from person to person, bright and practiced. The black sedan appeared again, 3 houses down, as if invited. He took his time walking up our drive. He called me man instead of my name. He complimented the lights. The fence. The dog. He laughed at a joke he almost made. When he said my wife's name, his voice lowered half a step. The dog put himself between us and found a reason to stay. I gave the man a plate. He held it like a prop. Grease hit his cuff. He laughed, like mess makes a person charming. When the guests left, the yard went quiet. I stood by the coals and let them turn gray. She stacked dishes fast, the way people do when they are late for something they won't admit exists. I'm wiped, she said. Her phone buzzed a little yes in her palm. She set it face down. It pulsed once. Then it slept. Sunday changed one small thing. The dot left the office early and paused at a gas station by the motel exit. Premium pump. 3 minutes. A ping in her banking app she forgot I still see. Then the frontage road. Then the lot. Then the pause that had become a time zone. I wrote earlier window in the notebook and drew a thin box around it. Lies grow to fill space. If you stand still, you can hear the stretch. I went to the garage and built quiet piles. 3 banker's boxes. 1 suitcase. A folder with copies of what has my name on it. I placed a spare leash in the truck. Not a threat. Not a rehearsal. Just preparation you can read from the driveway. I fed the dog and let him nap on my boot while I sorted a stack of mail into 3 neat lines. Keep. Call. Cut loose. Monday morning delivered the line I wanted. Our team lead's car is in the shop, she said. I might give him a ride this week. She didn't use his name. People say names when they are proud of someone. They use titles when they need curtains. I said, okay. I drew a single word in the notebook. Ride. Underlined it twice. That evening the doorbell camera caught her on the porch whispering into the phone. Not out front, she said. 2 houses down. The sedan obeyed. She jogged to it with the tote that never carries yoga clothes. The dot on my phone moved the way it always moves when nobody is supposed to notice. The file saved with a name so plain it looked like it had been on my hard drive for years. By now the evidence wasn't a stack. It was a line. Straight. Unbroken. Easy to follow. I closed the app and let the screen go black. I filled the dog's bowl. I boiled water for tea I didn't drink. Then I opened my browser and searched for a name I could trust with sharp things. A lawyer who reads more than he talks. An office that files more than it argues. The calendar page in my notebook got a new entry. A date. A time. A room where facts are measured instead of debated. I slept like a person with a list. Not heavy. Not light. Just level. In the morning I dressed the same way I would for an inspection. Clean boots. Quiet shirt. Phone charged. Folder ready. The house watched me go without asking questions. The dog lifted his head, then put it back down. He already knew the sound of the door I planned to use. The office sat between a dentist and a tax place. Neutral brick. Tidy shrubs. A door that closed with a soft seal. Inside, the air smelled like paper and lemon. The clock ticked in whole seconds. The receptionist looked up and said my name like it belonged there. I sat in a chair that didn't squeak and set the folder on my knee like a promise. When the door opened, a man shook my hand once and let silence do half the work. I slid the notebook across the desk. He read every line. He didn't flinch at 213. He didn't blink at the file names. He turned the page when the pattern became a road. You calm, he said. Cheaper than chaos, I said. He nodded. The room agreed. He spoke in clear lines, not circles. We started with the house. Title. Mortgage. Taxes. Who paid what and when. Then accounts. Checking. Savings. Retirement. The boring spine that holds a life upright. He asked short questions and let me answer without rushing. When I finished, he drew a box on a yellow pad and wrote 3 words inside: a keep, copy, secure. Keep what is yours. Copy what proves what is yours. Secure what can be moved without a parade. He slid the pad to me and tapped the corner. No speeches, he said. No threats. You not convincing anyone. You documenting. I told him I could do that. He believed me. We covered lines I would not cross. No passwords that aren't mine. No accounts that aren't mine. No devices that aren't mine. No games with locks or mail. I didn't need the lecture, but I needed to hear the boundaries out loud. He outlined the options like a carpenter measuring a room. Separate account for my paycheck. Forward important mail to a P.O. box so nothing goes missing during the noise. Inventory the house with a camera like you making insurance happy. Photograph the serial numbers. Open a folder that would bore a jury and impress a clerk. I told him the folder already existed. He smiled without showing teeth and said, "Good." Workplace policy came next. He didn't ask for gossip. He asked for facts. Job titles. Reporting lines. Any policy about relationships in the same chain of command. He said the word compliance like it belonged on the shopping list between milk and paper towels. If you choose to notify them, he said, do it in writing. Dates. Times. No adjectives. Sign your name. Then leave it alone. I pictured the backlot. The broken N on the motel sign. The tidy parade of file names with dates like mile markers. I can keep it clean, I said. He nodded. He reminded me that a complaint is not a grenade. It's a form. You don't throw it. You file it. You let the office do what the office does. He told me what to expect in a house that's about to change keys. Cold rooms. Quiet apologies. Loud routines. He said to speak less, not more. Answer simple questions simply. Do not ask questions you don't need the answers to yet. If a conversation starts to turn into a scene, leave the room the way you would leave a store that locked its doors at closing time. He told me which documents to duplicate and where to keep them. Birth certificate. Title. Policy pages. The things you only look for when the power is already out. We arranged a second meeting 2 weeks out. Not for negotiating. For the next steps if I had to take them. I left his office carrying a folder that weighed the same as when I walked in and felt heavier anyway. On the drive home I stopped at the bank and opened the account we had spoken about. No fanfare. A plain debit card that would arrive in the mail and slide into my wallet without demanding a speech. At the copy shop I fed the scanner until the machine grew warm, then slipped everything into sheet protectors and a black binder with a cheap spine that won't quit. I bought a label maker because order is a kind of medicine. On the way out I grabbed a roll of painter's tape and a Sharpie. Not because I wanted to label my life. Because I wanted the option. At home I moved my direct deposit with 3 clicks and a quiet breath. I set alerts on my phone that cared about numbers and ignored names. I pulled a chair to the junk drawer and sorted it the way a person sorts a tackle box before they go out on water they already know. I started an inventory video, slow and steady, every room, every corner. No narration. Just a record of what existed before anyone tried to remember it wrong. The dog followed me and sat at thresholds like a guard who doesn't bark. In the garage I stacked 3 banker's boxes next to the door, not hidden, not flashy. A suitcase stood beside them with nothing inside but air and the sense that it could carry whatever I told it to carry when the time came. When she got home she asked if I'd eaten. I said yes. She said she wasn't hungry. We talked about weather and trash day and whether the thermostat was lying again. She tilted her head toward the calendar on the fridge and traced a square with her fingertip. Maybe a birthday thing next weekend, she said, light as confetti. Neighbors. Casual. I said, sure. She watched my face like she was waiting for a password to appear. Nothing did. She texted while pretending to look for napkins, and I pretended the sound was the dishwasher changing cycles. That night, the familiar chime at 2:13. 2 figures softened against the glass. The hush that had learned our porch. The clip saved itself to the place where all the other clips wait. I didn't watch it until morning. I brushed the dog. I closed my eyes. I slept in slices and woke in order. The next day I sent emails with the subject lines no one argues with. Requesting direct deposit update, completed. Mortgage statement, copy requested. Utility, account holder verification. I did not copy her. I did not hide the paper. I filed confirmations in the folder that can sit on a desk and speak for me if I decide it should. I pulled the company policy PDF and read the section I knew would be there. Personal relationships between employees in the same reporting chain are subject to disclosure and review. I didn't highlight it. I didn't screenshot it. I typed one quiet page of dates and times and locations, and attached only what matched the words. I left out adjectives. I left out guesses. I saved it as a draft. Not yet. Soon. Jason came by with a story about his fence post and stayed for a beer on the porch. He asked if we needed tables for the birthday thing and said he could borrow a projector from the community center, the one they use for bingo and the big game. I told him that would help. He offered string lights and an extra extension cord. He asked if I wanted help testing the projector on the garage door like an outdoor screen. I said yes. When we plugged it in, light washed over the siding and made the night feel like a small theater with no tickets. We played a cartoon for his kid for 2 minutes and then shut it down. Jason said, "This'll look great." I said, "It will." He didn't hear the rest of the sentence I didn't say. In the grocery store I moved through aisles like a person who had hosted this kind of thing before. Burgers. Buns. Relish. Ice. Napkins. A cake with no inscription because the words could wait. I picked up a pack of plastic forks and put them back for heavier ones. I bought a bag of charcoal that could outlast a storm. I grabbed a disposable tablecloth the color of clean decisions. At home I stacked everything near the patio doors and made a list on my phone with checkboxes I planned to check in a straight line. In the quiet hours I built a presentation without calling it that. A simple slide with a map. Dots that move. Time stamps. No logos. No addresses. No brand names. Another slide with the motion clips trimmed to the moment the shadows meet the glass and the audio hears the hush. No faces. No accusations. Just the house telling the truth to a screen. I put the files on a drive and labeled it with a piece of blue tape and one word in block letters. Saturday. I thought about sending the complaint to her company right away and decided to wait 2 days. Not to be dramatic. To be fair to the calendar. Friday morning at 9 I would send it to the address listed under compliance on the website. Straight facts. Neutral tone. Signed with my name. Then I'd close the laptop and go buy ice. Later, when she asked who we'd invited, I named neighbors and cousins and the nice couple from the cul-de-sac who always bring deviled eggs. I kept my voice level and my list short. She nodded, satisfied with a number that sounded like safety. In the evenings she rehearsed being happy. Candles. Music. A smile that fits most rooms. I let her, because rehearsals end. I tested the projector alone one more time and stood in the yard while the garage door became a frame. The clips played without sound. The map pulsed and drifted. The time stamps stacked themselves like bricks. It wasn't revenge on the screen. It was weather. It was a report. It was gravity doing what gravity does. Friday at 9 I sent the email. Subject line, a relationship disclosure and potential conflict of interest. 2 paragraphs. Dates and times. 1 sentence clarifying that I was the spouse. 1 line offering to speak if they required it. Attachments named in the same boring way everything else in my folder was named. I hit send. The message left and did not come back. I closed the laptop and carried the cooler to the truck. The black sedan appeared early that night and idled 2 houses down as usual. She told me she needed more ice. I told her I had it covered. She adjusted a bracelet and a strand of hair and waited for the second chirp she has learned to hear. When it came, she stepped toward the door and stopped, like she remembered there was something she had forgotten to say to me. Then she didn't say it. The door clicked. The porch light hummed. The camera did its quiet job. I put a lighter and a clean spatula on the grill shelf and checked the propane even though I was using charcoal. A man can double-check things and not be nervous. The morning of the party felt like an inspection I had already passed. I trimmed the lawn and wiped the table with a fresh towel. I filled a bucket with bottled water because not everyone wants soda. I set up a folding table near the outlet and coiled the extension cord like a sleeping snake. Jason rolled the projector over in a plastic bin and gave me a thumbs up. He didn't ask what I planned to show. He didn't need to know. Neighbors know when a yard is a stage and when a stage is a yard. She moved through the house humming, phone in hand, wearing the good jacket that used to be for anniversaries. She asked me if she looked all right. I said yes because it was true. She looked like someone whose life still believes it is a script. By late afternoon the grill was hot and the lights were up. Plates waited in neat stacks. The dog lay under the picnic bench in his spot, watching boots and ankles as guests arrived. I checked the drive in my pocket with one hand and counted to 4 in my head. Not to calm down. To keep time. When the sun slid behind the roofline, I poured myself a glass of water and stepped back to the patio door. The yard felt like a room that had agreed to listen. All that was left was a toast. And a projector. And the simple kind of truth that does not raise its voice. By 6 the yard was warm and bright and ready to listen. String lights hummed. The grill worked like a metronome. Neighbors filled plates and made easy talk about traffic and the team and the weather finally behaving. I kept to water and counted small things, how often she checked her phone, how often he looked for a mirror. Brandon arrived 2 houses down like he always does, the black sedan easing into its spot as if the curb were reserved. He walked up our path rehearsed and casual, sleeves rolled once, smile set to friendly, voice a notch lower when he said her name. He shook Jason's hand and complimented the lights. He told me I'd nailed the sear, man, as if the grill needed his approval to keep working. My dog lay under the picnic bench and decided not to move. I let the chatter pile up like kindling and made a note of where people were standing. 2 cousins by the cooler. The cul-de-sac couple near the fence. Lisa at the table handing out napkins as if she had been here all along. My wife floated between them with the good jacket on, the jacket that used to mean an anniversary and now means a weekend. She laughed at conversations I wasn't in and touched Brandon's sleeve without thinking, the way someone touches a habit. I refilled the water bucket and kept time. When the sun slid behind the roofline and the yard turned gold, I tapped a glass with the back of a fork. The sound lifted heads. I waited for quiet because quiet is a muscle I own now. Thanks for coming, I said. I kept my voice level. Eat, drink, borrow chairs if your backyard needs them. I'm grateful you're here. I looked at my wife. She was already smiling, ready for a birthday toast that said nothing and gave everything. There's one more thing, I added, and turned to the garage. Jason knew, in the way neighbors know a storm before the forecast. He flipped the projector switch and a white rectangle washed over the door like a new wall. People murmured, curious and warm. It looked festive. It looked harmless. It wasn't. The first slide was a map with a single gray dot. No brand names. No addresses. Just a city outline and a clean line. The dot moved from our street to a familiar office park. It paused 11 minutes. It slid east to a frontage road. It stopped in a quiet lot behind a billboard that says no surprises. Under the map, dates and times drew their own sentence. Tuesday. 9/12, Tuesday. 9/19, Tuesday. 10:03, the dot returned to the office like a lunch break that forgot to eat. Nobody spoke for 3 beats. Then someone shifted a plate. Paper scraped wood. You could hear a thought get born. The second slide looked the same, only the dates had changed. Thursday. 8:36, Thursday. 9:21, Thursday. 10:02, the same quiet line. The same useful dot. Brandon's mouth found a half smile and got stuck. My wife stared at the screen as if she could make it turn into a vacation slideshow if she believed hard enough. I kept going because that's what a line does when it's straight. The third slide was shorter, Saturday 2:13 a.m., but not less. The garage door filled with the soft gray of our porch glass at night. 2 shapes drifted into view, close as a secret, slow as rehearsal. A hand hovered near the handle, the way a hand does when it knows a locked code and pretends not to. On the audio, the hush we all live with floated across the yard. Not a word. Just the careful pride of people who think noise is the only way truth travels. A fork fell onto a plate and made a clean, bright sound. Somebody took a breath and didn't know where to put it. I advanced the clip by seconds, and the timestamp stamped itself. 2:13, 2:13. 2:13, 3 different nights. 1 hour that had learned our house by heart. I didn't look at my wife yet. I didn't look at Brandon. I looked at the people who mow their lawns in straight lines and carry jumper cables in the trunks and bring extra chairs when you say come by. They were quiet because they knew what they were seeing. A map does not gossip. A clock does not editorialize. A camera does not forgive. I turned the projector off and let the yard take a breath. Then I faced my wife and spoke the only toast I brought. "Thank you," I said, steady and plain, "for teaching me how easy it is to confuse habit with love. Tonight I stopped confusing them." No one clapped. No one needed to. I set my glass down and turned to business. Yesterday morning, I said to the yard, "I filed a formal complaint with your company's compliance office regarding a personal relationship between co-workers in the same reporting chain. The file includes dates, times, and location data. No adjectives. No speculation. They acknowledged receipt. They have my name and number if they need anything further. I won't be discussing it beyond that." The words landed like they were supposed to, flat as paper, sharp as edges. My wife made a sound like a chair leg scraping tile. "We should talk," she started, but I lifted a palm. Not to silence her. To set a frame around what was already true. "Not right now," I said. "Not here." I turned my shoulders to Brandon. He was working on choosing a face. He picked a contrite one and tried to wear it like it fit. "You should head out," I told him, "the way a person tells a guest the party is over. You won't need to circle the block anymore. Not here. Not 2 houses down. Not at 2:13. He opened his mouth, reached for a joke, and found nothing. "Man," he said. I let the word die by itself. "Your car," I added, because some sentences enjoy being complete, "isn't in the shop. You can drive yourself." That pulled a small, involuntary laugh from Jason, the tired kind a father makes when a life finally says its own name. Brandon looked to my wife and found no rescue. His sunglasses were in his shirt pocket, and for the first time since I met him he didn't know where to put his eyes. He put his plate down on the railing and left the burger half-finished, grease cooling like a signature. He walked toward the street with the half-confidence of a man who knows the curb but not the way home anymore. The yard opened around him and then closed the way water closes after a boat. I let the quiet stand. My wife tried again. "This isn't what you think," she said, which is the sentence people say when time and math and cameras have run out of favors. "I sent the email yesterday," I said, calm as a ledger. "It says exactly what I think, and exactly what I can prove. Monday morning, your office will do what it does. This, I gestured to the yard, is just us being honest with the people who loan us sugar and watch our dog. Lisa put her napkins down and looked at the table like it had suddenly become fragile. The cul-de-sac couple held hands under the bench as if the bench needed help carrying the moment. My cousin stared at the grass so they wouldn't have to look at faces. I felt none of it as heat. Only as clarity. I thanked Jason for the projector without taking my eyes off my wife, and he, bless him, caught it and started coiling the cord like a man who knows when a task is a kindness. Keys, I said, and set mine on the table. I'll be gone for a few days. The dog stays with me. I didn't say where because she no longer gets the map. I didn't say when because I'm done giving time away. We can talk with counsel present, I added, not as a threat. As a meeting time. She blinked, then looked down at the iced caramel sweating on the table, the same drink I set for her every morning like a small pledge. I watched the ring of water widen under the cup and understood a simple thing, as some circles do not close. I lifted my glass of water and finished it, because leaving a full glass behind is a kind of lie too. Thank you for coming, I told the yard again, softer this time. There's cake by the patio. Please take some home. They nodded the way a crowd nods when a fire drill is over and the building did not burn. People began moving, careful, helpful, decent. Plates were stacked. A neighbor put foil over the potato salad. Someone started a trash bag and held it open for forks. Nobody touched the projector bin except Jason. Nobody asked me to explain the map. In the middle of it, my wife put out a hand like she was trying to catch rain. Please, she said. Not loud. Not small. Just late. I looked at her and recognized the exact person she was in that second and none of the person she had rehearsed all week. I did not hate her. I did not love her. I accepted her like weather. Monday, I said. At 10. That was the whole sentence. She let her hand fall and smoothed the jacket that had just changed jobs from celebration to costume. Brandon's engine turned over 3 houses down and then cut off again, like a man who realized he'd left something he couldn't come back for. He did not return. The sky deepened. The string lights got brave. The yard remembered it was a yard. I picked up the drive from the patio table and slid it into my pocket. I put the tong handles together and set them on the grill shelf. I scratched the dog's neck and he stood without being asked. When the last plate was covered and the last chair folded, I looked at my house, every window, every hinge, every line I had kept straight, and knew exactly which door I would use and in what order. Not a scene. A sequence. Not a speech. A step. The night didn't argue. It just made room. I waited until the yard turned back into a yard. Until chairs folded. Until foil covered what was left. I rinsed the tongs. I wiped the table. I put the drive in my pocket and the dog in the truck. I left my keys on the kitchen island, on the cool granite where I put her coffee every morning. No note. Notes argue. Keys conclude. I drove to a place that rents by the week. Neutral carpet. Neutral art. A kitchenette that hums but never gets in the way. I set the dog's bowl down and filled it twice. I put my binder in the closet, on the top shelf, where it looks like a suitcase but weighs like a plan. I showered and watched water move in straight lines down clean tile. I slept on top of the covers with the window cracked and the air unit steady as a drum. My phone face down on the nightstand. Calls allowed from one number only, and my attorney. Morning was clear. The dog stretched and thumped his tail. I bought a cheap coffee from the lobby and sipped it in the parking lot like a man waiting for a delivery that will arrive on schedule. At 8:17 an email slid into view. Subject line, acknowledgement of receipt, compliance review. Thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. We have initiated a review. We may contact you for additional information. Non-retaliation policy attached. It read exactly the way I wanted it to. Straight. Boring. Real. At 9:02, my phone rang from a number with her company's area code. I let it go to voicemail. A careful voice left a message asking for a return call. I texted my attorney and sent the voicemail along. He replied with a single line, "A wheel handle." 10 minutes later, he called the number himself, introduced his name, his firm, his client, and his intention to keep everything in writing. "We respect your process. Send questions by email." He copied me. They agreed. The paper started to stack in the right place. At 10 o'clock I sat in his office across a table that liked straight pens and flat folders. He reviewed a short list. Direct deposit already moved. Joint card closed for new charges. Utilities documented. Inventory video complete. He nodded at each item like a mechanic tapping a wrench against a bolt. "Two next steps," he said. First, separate residence notice. Simple, dated, polite. Second, a proposal for temporary arrangements. He pushed a template across the table. I read it once and didn't change a word. He printed it with space for a signature. I signed where the line asked me to. He offered to courier it to the house. I declined. "I'll drop it," I said. He didn't argue. He added one reminder. No speeches. I stopped by a storage place on the way. 5 by 10. Roll-up door. A lock with a key I can keep in my pocket without feeling it. I slid in the 3 banker's boxes and the empty suitcase, not because I needed the room, but because I wanted the option. The manager gave me a welcome packet with rules that fit on one page. No overnight stays. No gas in containers. No food. Clean, plain rules for a clean, plain space. At lunch, the dog and I ate at a diner that serves eggs the same way every day. 2 over medium. Toast. Coffee poured without asking. A television in the corner showed a game nobody watched. I didn't scroll. My phone stayed quiet because I told it to. The silence was not empty. It was balanced. By mid-afternoon, she called. The screen spelled her name. I let it ring out. She texted. "We need to talk." Then, "Please." Then nothing for a while. Then, "Where are you?" I didn't answer any of it. At 5, I sent one line back. "Tomorrow at 10. Counsel present." She wrote, "I don't need a lawyer to talk to my husband." I didn't respond. Questions you don't ask don't need answers. Calls you don't take don't become scenes. Evening at the rental smelled like clean carpet and dog shampoo. I threw a ball down the hall and watched him skid on the runner and bring it back like he'd solved something that matters. I opened the binder and skimmed the checklist one more time. Mail forward, filed. Photo of the title, filed. Password list for only my accounts, printed, sealed, stored. The folder did not care about feelings. It cared about names, dates, and signatures. That's how you survive a hallway with 2 exits. You pick one and sign it. At 8:41 I took a slow drive past the old street. Not to watch. To say goodbye to a route I won't need. The porch light glowed. The fern leaned. The black sedan did not appear. Maybe he learned a new hour. Maybe he learned nothing. Not my job anymore. I turned the truck around at the cul-de-sac and left the street in my review without narrating it. Some places only exist while you're willing to tell their story. Monday came like a metronome. I wore a quiet shirt and clean boots. The conference room at the attorney's office had a window full of trees and a table with coasters nobody uses. She arrived 5 minutes late, jacket folded over her arm like a flag that forgot its country. Her eyes searched the room for a version of me that would say this was all a mistake. I brought the version that reads the agenda and keeps to time. The attorney set the ground rules. We are here to discuss logistics, finances, residence, property. We are not here to debate facts you've seen. No raised voices. No interruptions. He looked at both of us and waited for nods. We nodded. She started with a sentence she'd practiced. It's not what you think. He held up a hand and guided her back to the page. We won't litigate the why today, he said. We are outlining the how. He covered the essentials in order. Temporary support. Access to the house to collect personal items at a scheduled time. Pet custody while things are assessed. Communication limited to scheduling and urgent matters, in writing, through a shared address. Separate accounts. No new debts in joint names. She agreed to most of it with the weary speed of a person who wants to skip to the apology she rehearsed in the mirror. When she ran into a point she didn't like, she looked at me for help. I kept my eyes on the document. Help is a word that lives in earlier chapters. Her phone lit up once and stayed face down. The attorney paused so she wouldn't think he didn't see it. He took a call from the receptionist, stepped out for 30 seconds, and returned with a message printed on letterhead. A one-line fax receipt. A letter from her company. Administrative leave pending review for an employee whose name wasn't mine. No details. No adjectives. Just the sentence a building writes when it catches up to itself. He placed it on the table. He did not smile. I didn't react. I didn't need to. The machine had started. It would grind. It would stamp. It would file. It would move on when it was done. That part was never my job. We finished in 37 minutes. She signed the page that asked for her signature. I signed the one that asked for mine. He gathered the papers and said the next steps out loud so no one could pretend they misheard. She stood, then sat back down, then stood again. Can we talk? She asked, smaller now. The attorney looked at me. I looked at the clock. I have nothing to add, I said. It wasn't a line. It was true. In the parking lot, the sky shrugged into afternoon. She followed me 2 steps and stopped like a magnet under glass. Where are you staying? She asked. I didn't answer. That is information you give when you still live inside the same map. I don't. I drove to the rental and made rice and chicken in a pan that still believes in simple instructions. I gave the dog a bite and he pretended it was a secret. I checked my email. Compliance had sent a second note, an investigator assigned, timeline pending, please preserve any relevant materials. I replied with a sentence that could stand up by itself. Materials preserved. Available upon request. Then I closed the laptop and slid it under the bed like a book you're done with for now. I took the spare leash and walked the dog behind the strip of businesses that go quiet after dinner. The sky was soft. The air unit at the laundromat hummed in a key that sounded like a promise. A kid practiced skateboard tricks in the lot and finally landed one and lifted both arms without looking around to see who saw. The dog sat, satisfied with the smell of grass and distant charcoal. For the first time in a long time, there was nothing to hunt. No clocks to chase. No dots to track. Just a streetlight doing its job without applause. Back in the room, I emptied my pockets onto the table. Wallet. Phone. Truck key. The small coin I didn't need anymore. I held it for a count of 4 and set it next to the binder. It had done its job. It could go quiet now. She texted once more that night. I'm sorry. Then, please. I set the phone to Do Not Disturb and placed it screen down. I turned off the lamp. The room went dark in a way a good room knows how to do. The dog circled once and slept heavy. The air unit clicked and held. I listened to the kind of quiet that isn't empty. It's earned. Morning will come. Papers will arrive. A door will open. Another will close. Someone will call a meeting and give it a name that makes sense for an office. Somewhere a projector will show a training about conflicts and choices, and a room will nod because that's what rooms do. As for me, I have a list that fits on one page. Move what needs moving. Sign what needs signing. Say only what belongs in the record. Stop feeding ghosts. Keep the dog fed. Drink water. Sleep. I don't miss the 2:13 chime. The camera can stare at an empty porch all at once. It belongs to a house that used to be mine and now is only a place I kept straight. The silence I have now is different. It doesn't perform. It works. It holds the room up like a beam you don't see after the drywall goes on. I locked the door at the rental and felt exactly what I wanted to feel, nothing sharp, nothing soft. Just level. Then I slept. And the quiet did exactly what I asked. 2 weeks passed like a tape measure. Straight. Unforgiving. Useful. The first sign was a letter on firm paper. Administrative review concluded. Appropriate action taken. No details. No drama. Just a sentence stamped by a building that files its feelings. Then came an email from the investigator. Thank you for your cooperation. Your materials were decisive. That was the whole note. It said more than it looked like. Jason told me the rest in the language of neighborhoods. He heard from a friend of a friend who cleans the offices on Thursdays. Brandon turned in his badge on a Wednesday afternoon. No cake. No handshake tour. The company sedan left the lot without him. The rumor had two endings. One said terminated. One said resigned. Both work. My wife, ex-wife in waiting, was reassigned pending counseling, which is corporate for a smaller desk and a shorter leash. I didn't replay any of it in my head. It wasn't a highlight reel. It was a ledger closing a line. My attorney moved with the same rhythm. He mailed a packet that felt heavier than paper. Temporary orders filed. Separate residents noted. A schedule to collect personal items under a window that began and ended on the same hour. I showed up on time with 2 boxes, a bag for clothes, and the dog's spare leash looped over my wrist. The door opened before I could knock. She stood there in the good jacket, the one that had changed jobs twice in a week. We kept to the list. Tools. Books. Work boots. The framed photo of my father at a ball game, sun in his eyes, grin caught mid-shout. I took the 2 cast-iron pans I paid for and left the copper pot her aunt sent. I unplugged the coffee maker I bought before we were coiled the cord, and set it in a box beside the grinder. She hovered in the doorway like a witness who expects questions and gets none. Once she reached out as if to touch my sleeve and found air instead. I didn't mean, she started, and let the sentence fall down the stairs between us. I taped a box and carried it out to the truck. In the hallway the thermostat claimed 72. The house felt like 62 anyway. I walked through each room slow, not to remember, not to mourn. To confirm. The bed we'd chosen for its quiet. The dent in the couch cushion that knew my shape. The pantry with the spice jars I labeled the winter we thought all problems were about shelf space. I wasn't cataloging loss. I was checking off a job. At the end, I put one key on the counter and left the other with the attorney, as agreed. She lifted her eyes like a person coming up from a deep pool. "Where are you?" she asked. I told her the same answer I'd give a stranger at a gas station asking for my route. "Headed north," I said. It was true enough and kind enough for both of us. On the way out, Jason raised a hand from his driveway. He didn't ask anything. He didn't need to. He brought over a step stool and held the screen door while I loaded the last box. "Light work," he said. I nodded. "Light work," I echoed. We meant the same thing and two different things at once. At the rental, the dog curled on the mat and exhaled a long yes. I put the coffee maker on the counter and ran water through it just to hear something faithful. I slid the binder to the back of the closet. I didn't throw it away. I didn't plan to open it either. Some tools you keep because their job is done. 3 mornings later, a small envelope arrived from her HR with a copy of the non-retaliation policy and an invitation to report any concerns during the transition. It included a line I read twice. "We appreciate the professional tone of your correspondence." That was the only compliment I needed. I deleted the map app automation that had named my screenshots. I dragged the folder to the archive where boring things go when they still matter and no longer rule you. I kept one file, Tuesday_21_14_ motel lot, because keeping one proof felt cleaner than keeping none. It went on a small drive I labeled with a single word, a receipt. I looked at my watch and realized I could put time back where it belonged. Breakfast when I was hungry. Work when work called. Sleep when the ceiling fan said so. No secret schedule hiding inside my schedule. No second shift at 2:13. The quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It felt furnished. Paperwork moved like weather. Slow, steady, unavoidable. Titles adjusted. Accounts split where they were meant to split. A notary watched us sign the one page that mattered and stamped it like a gavel. I didn't speak. She didn't either. The notary said congratulations out of habit and then looked embarrassed. I said thank you because people who stamp your life for a living deserve courtesy. Jason and I took down the string lights I'd left on the fence behind the house. He kept them for his own yard with the kind of reluctance that respects ownership even when the owner has moved on. We carried the projector bin back to the community center. The volunteer at the desk asked if it worked out for our movie night. Jason said, "Perfect." I said, "Exactly what we needed." The volunteer offered a bingo flyer. We took it because taking a flyer is easy and kind. I found a little place on the edge of town. A clean porch. A straight hallway. Floors that don't squeak when you do the same lap twice, which I do, sometimes, late, just to make sure the walls are still mine. I bought a used dining table with 2 chairs and let the second chair be empty on purpose. I set a bowl for keys by the door and put only my keys inside. It looked right in a way that surprised me. The first night in the new place I installed a doorbell camera out of habit and laughed at myself when I angled it. Not paranoia. Procedure. I set the alert time to nothing special. All hours are honest when nobody is sneaking them. At 2:13 the house was quiet the way a forest is quiet, alive, working, at peace with itself. Compliance sent a final email 2 Fridays later. Review closed. Policies reinforced. Training to be updated. Appropriate action taken. Thank you for your cooperation. It also contained a sentence the attorney underlined in his reply, and we consider the matter resolved. That is corporate 4. We saw what we needed to see. 2:13 a.m. The doorbell camera chimed, one soft note in a quiet house. My phone lit the bedroom in cold blue. On the screen I saw our porch glass and 2 moving shadows pressed close, like they shared the same breath. A hush slipped through the mic. Not words. Just a careful, practiced silence. I didn't jump up. I watched the clip all the way through, let it save to the cloud, locked the phone, and stared at the ceiling fan counting each slow blade until sleep forgot to show. Dawn slid under the blinds and I drove to the Dunkin' on Maple and 12th, the one that opens before the cruise punch-in. I ordered hot coffee for me and her iced caramel, 2 pumps, no whip. Back home I set both cups on the counter like offerings and listened to the shower upstairs. Water on Tile. A tune that wasn't quite a song. She came down in a gym hoodie and leggings that pass for innocent in daylight. "You're the best," she said without looking up. Her phone lay face down on the island, a new habit with the old excuse of being present. The screen blinked once, a small glow, then fell dark again. She flipped it, thumbed something quick, smiled at the tiny world behind that lock screen, and sipped the caramel. Tuesday is yoga now. It used to be Thursday until it wasn't. Schedules change. People evolve. Love adapts. I asked if she wanted me to top off her tank. She inhaled like a heel catching on a loose nail and said, "Lisa's picking me up. We might grab smoothies." Lisa has 3 kids and a minivan that smells like crackers, and she does not pick anyone up after 8 at night. I nodded like we were discussing traffic. The dog pressed his head to my knee and watched her like a court stenographer taking everything down. Red flags rarely wave, they drape. They turn into curtains a house learns to live behind. A new passcode for privacy. The phone always face down to focus. A tote bag from a boutique on the far side of town we never visit. 2 of the same workout top in different colors because laundry is chaos. A bottle of perfume that lingers in the hallway long after she's gone, expensive and eager, a scent that thinks it is permission. She laughs at jokes I don't tell and speaks in names I don't know. Brandon said the rollout is a beast. No last name, no title, just a first name shaped like a placeholder. Lately our kitchen sounds like an office I never applied to. The stories are not ours anymore, they're memos with a smile. Monday used to be our small ritual. Cheap TV. Cheap wine. Counting shiplap like scorekeepers in a game no one else understands. Now she has check-ins and touch bases, phrases that make adults feel busy while nothing happens you can hold in your hand. She leaves early to beat traffic, a line people use when they want to outrun a mirror. She comes home late smelling like something that isn't us. She misses the key hook twice, laughs at herself with a voice that doesn't live in this kitchen, and says she's tired in a way that sounds satisfied. I don't explode. I collect. I bought a pocket notebook at the CVS next to the tire shop, paid cash, and wrote down times. Not curiosity. Record keeping. 2:13 a.m., motion, 2 silhouettes, whisper. Tuesday, 8:46 p.m., screen glow, face down, smile without eyes. New perfume, hallway, stays after. I went for a haircut I'd put off for months, sat in the chair, and said the simplest sentence the mirror understands. Clean it up. The barber talked about the game and the school Levi and a road closure on the east side. He never asked if I was okay. I tipped him like a man who appreciates the value of normal. In the grocery store a week later I reached for charcoal and knocked a bag into an older woman's cart. She laughed and said, "Looks like I'm grilling too." I apologized and moved the bag back. On the end cap, a box of peppermint gum waited in perfect rows. I walked past it without a flinch. The dog food aisle smelled like honest things. I bought the kind he actually eats and not the kind we bought for packaging. My phone learned new notifications. Weather. A package out for delivery. A calendar reminder for a dentist I'd been ignoring. No hearts. No chirps. No late tickets for a show I didn't buy. Just the drumbeat of a life that can be read aloud without editing. One evening, the neighbor 2 doors down locked herself out. She held up a leash and a phone and a look that said she had paced between options and found none. I called a locksmith and waited with her on the steps while her dog stared through the glass like he was our supervisor. We talked about nothing until the van pulled up and a man with calm hands did what calm hands do. When the door clicked open, she exhaled the kind of thank you that belongs to strangers who decide to be neighbors. She offered to pay me back for the service call. I told her to buy a spare hide key instead. She smiled and said, "You sound like you've thought about doors." I said, "A little." Then I went home and fed my dog and let the evening be an evening. The last thing I moved from the storage unit was the rolled-up banner we never hung, the one from the anniversary trip we never took. I laid it flat in the garage and looked at the date printed in cheerful letters. It felt like a calendar page from a year that didn't happen. I folded it carefully and slid it into the recycling, then swept the floor because you should always leave a space better than you found it. I kept a habit of writing one line each night in the notebook that started this whole thing. Not a case file anymore. A ledger of ordinary mode. Met new neighbor with the golden retriever. Fixed the drawer. No chime at 2:13. That last line appeared more than once. It never got old. A week after the final email, an envelope arrived from the court with a date for a brief hearing. Nothing dramatic. 10 minutes to confirm what 2 signatures and a stamp already did. My attorney said I didn't have to say anything unless the judge asked me a direct question. I wore the quiet shirt and the clean boots and answered exactly the words I was asked. The judge nodded and said a sentence built of simple bricks. Order granted. I thanked her and let the door close behind me with the kind of sound that means done. On the way home I drove past the diner with the eggs and the coffee that pours itself. I pulled in and sat at the counter. The waitress recognized me, not because I'm special, but because I'm consistent. "The usual?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and meant more than breakfast. She poured the coffee. It tasted like a morning that knows its job. Back at the house, I took the small drive labeled receipt and set it on the top shelf with the binder. Then I closed the closet and went to the porch. The camera watched an empty step and reported nothing. I turned the alert volume down to the lowest setting. The dog settled beside me with a sigh that sounded like a full sentence. Streetlights came on one by one. Somewhere far away, someone honked twice out of habit. The sound didn't find me. People ask how a story ends when you don't chase forgiveness or set fire to bridges. It ends like this. With doors that close when you tell them to. With papers that stack the right way. With a house that keeps your shape when you walk through it. With a quiet you don't have to defend. With a life that reads out loud just fine. No speeches. Just steps. And every one of them mine.